I used to think night driving was peaceful. There's a kind of hush that falls over the road when everyone else's day has folded up like a newspaper, store signs blink slower, the air tastes colder, radio stations feel like conspirators. I liked that quiet. It felt like being the only steady thing in a world that otherwise moved in bursts. Then one night changed everything. It was a weeknight. I'd stayed late finishing a freelance project, the kind of work that eats the daylight and leaves you blinking at the glow of your laptop until you forget what time the sky goes black. By the time I left the office, the street lamps were thinly bright, and the highway looked like a long, obedient ribbon. I didn't want to call a friend or take a cab. I wanted the car to hold me like a small, portable home. I remember the mundane details because terror always tastes like ordinary things right before it arrives. I had a peppermint gum in my mouth that I would later forget until the library of my mind handed it back to me. The radio was on low, an old playlist of songs I used to prefer before playlists got clinical. My seatbelt clicked the same way it always does. The steering wheel had the faint smell of air freshener and my sleeve. I drove the same route I'd taken home 100 times. The first sign something was off happened at the turn for the old highway bypass. A car pulled out behind me, a little too close, its headlights tapered like two eyes that didn't blink. I didn't think much of it at first, tailgaters are part of the night's grammar. But instead of passing at the earliest opportunity, the car stayed exactly 2 car lengths behind me. Not close enough to push, not distant enough to be a regular driver. We hit an on-ramp, and it kept the same distance. We crossed the overpass, and the tail light stayed tethered 2 car lengths away. When you spend a lot of time driving, you learn that patterns tell stories. 2 identical distance, repetition, that's not random. I shifted lanes, let someone pass, tried to let the car go by. It didn't. The headlights matched mine like a reflection. The radio played a song whose chorus I hummed as a muscle to keep from thinking too hard. At the next junction I took an exit and rolled through the light slowly, pretending to check for oncoming cars. The car behind me did the same. Not following the exact path, but shadowing. I told myself I was paranoid. I told myself the person had a destination near mine, a wrong turn, a nervous driver. My brain invented everything sane it could in 30 seconds. The road narrowed as I left the main highway for the older stretch of 2-lane that runs under long strings of trees. Fog had started to come in, the kind that smells like wet stone and steals your distance. The trees leaned over the road like bored sentries. That's when the other car flashed its high beams for a single heartbeat. It was a single flash, not the courtesy signal you use to say go ahead. This flash felt particular, a very quiet punctuation that rearranged my throat. When I checked the rear view, the car's silhouette looked less like a vehicle and more like a shade pressed into the shape of metal. My breath went thin. I increased my speed a little, the way you do when you tell your body it has options. The speedometer climbed and the other car followed. I took the next intersection faster. The car followed. I took a residential street and cut through 1 block hoping to drop them. The car matched me, 2 lengths back, always 2. By now my rational brain was trading places with a smaller animal, survival. I drove to the nearest lit area I could think of, a 24-hour gas station with fluorescent lights that bleed honesty. The station had a single attendant and 1 pump in use. I felt ridiculous turning the car in eager circles into the lot. The follower did not park behind me. It idled across the street, headlights off, like a watchful cave. Inside, the fluorescent lights made everything smaller and more honest. I bought water and pretended to text someone on my way, though I didn't want anyone to know exactly where I had stopped. When I came back to the car, the driver's door was closed, my keys in my hand. The other car was still there, across the street, as if it weren't trying to look normal at all. I considered calling the police, but even the thought felt slow, like putting a bandage on an open vein. Part of me wanted to be brave. Part of me wanted to drive home at normal speed and pretend the shape of the other car was only the trick of an empty night. I got back in and pulled out. The car across the street followed at the same tight distance. This time, when I signaled, it signaled back, not a flash but a pattern, 3 quick taps of brake lights, then a pause, then 3 more. Those taps matched the rhythm I'd heard on old security camera footage in true crime shows when somebody was trying to mark someone like a box to check later. It felt intended. I did what anyone does when a pattern insists, I tested it. I took the freeway, weaving at speed where you blend into traffic. The car kept the same distance, like a cassette stuck on the same groove. When I took exits to confuse every street name I knew by heart, it still mimicked me. Not a tailgate, a shadow. And then the lights went out. It wasn't the car's lights or mine. For a moment, the whole world failed. The dashboard dimmed like the house forgetting to pay its electric. The freeway lights, the signboards, the single lamps at the shoulder, everything blinked off in the way a town holds its breath. Headlights cut through like knives. In that darkness, the other car's silhouette looked enormous, and for a moment I thought I understood the quietness of being hunted. Then my phone lit up, an incoming call. Unknown number. No digits, just unknown. I fumbled for it with hands that suddenly felt 2 sizes too big, and my thumb nearly missed the green button. A voice, low and almost too casual to be threatening, said, "You should have pulled over." "Who is this?" I asked, my voice thin. "You know why," the voice said. "You picked my car for a reason. You're the one who makes choices. Stay calm." The call ended. The radio clicked to static. The other car followed, as if the conversation had been between the two of us, and the highway eavesdropped like it was a neighbor at a poor window. Panic is not cinematic. It's arithmetic. It's the realization that you have fewer options than you thought and that the choices you have left are simple and terrible. I thought about pulling into the police station 2 exits back. I considered driving home and crashing through the gate if I had to. I considered stopping in the middle of the road to make the situation public. I considered things that made me queasy because violence takes a life to do the math on. Instead, I drove to the next exit, took an unfamiliar route, and tried to intentionally lose the car by switching roads again and again. The little animal in my gut hummed. The other car matched me at every turn, sometimes choosing alleys I hadn't known existed, sometimes slowing so it was almost invisible. Once I slowed to let an ambulance pass and the other car slowed too, perfectly, like a partner. It continued for an hour which felt like a day. The fog wrapped the taillights in cloth. The other car's silhouette became a constant in my mirrors, a separate heartbeat. I began to notice small details, the way the driver never seemed to look like a driver, the fact that when we both stopped at a light he would always veer off when the light turned green, as if not to be seen. If I accelerated, the car accelerated. If I drifted, it drifted. Eventually I found myself on a narrow 2-lane that cuts through an industrial stretch, warehouses closed for the night, chain-link fences in the half-light. My car finally stuttered, just a slight cough at first, then silence as the engine surrendered like a man tired of carrying secrets. The needles on the dashboard slid down. The radio conked out. I coasted to the shoulder. When any car dies alone at night, you know the rules. You pull over, you stay inside, you wait. I pulled over and turned on my hazard lights. They blinked steady in the fog. The other car pulled up behind me, an exact 2 lengths as always. The engine idled. The silhouette remained. When the driver's door opened I could hear the click over the radiator. For a second the shape outside my rear window looked like a person climbing out to check a tire, then it was suddenly a pair of boots, then a hand. A hand pressed flat against the trunk as if feeling for heat. My throat closed. My phone buzzed again. A text this time, door open. There are moments in life where your brain performs a ledger of options and you can see, in ugly clarity, what each one requires. I could get out and confront them. I could flee with a stalled car and pray I could restart. I could honk. I could make a scene. I could wait and be invisible. I did the last thing I could think of that didn't feel like a decision to trade my life for noise. I locked the doors, put the car into park, and sat very still. I pretended to be full of things to make me ordinary, a breath, a cough, the rustle of fabric as I moved to the passenger seat and reached for a bottle of water. My hand shook. The other car's door opened. Boots crunched. Steps approached my back window. The shadow loomed. I kept my head low and looked down at my phone. The clock ticked. The world reduced to my chest. A knock, soft, came at the driver's door. 3 taps. Slow. Calculated. The knock came again, closer to the hinge. A shadow fell across the space between glass and seat. The window shook with the pressure of knuckles. My knees felt like someone had poured warm water through them. And then, because stories rarely leave you with one kind of fear, a sound from the passenger side, like something clambering under the car. My heart slammed so hard I thought I'd throw up. The darkness outside my windows focused into a single, near thing. A silhouette leaned at the hood, forehead near the glass. The face, God help me, was young, clean, and ordinary. Not monstrous. Not the thing in my earlier imaginings. Just a face, a man's mouth parted like he was tasting the air. "Easy," he said. The voice was not the voice from the call. It was close and human. "We don't want trouble." I opened my mouth because I'm sometimes a fool and because saying nothing felt like an invitation. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice smaller than I'd planned. "Your wallet," he said. "Slide it to the left. Do it quiet." I kept my hands visible on the wheel. The man's hand, pale in the halogen, touched the glass. He was not reaching for violence. He wanted convenience. The cool absurdity of being robbed under a sky that had been patient for me all my life felt like a movie. I slid the wallet across the seat with the tremor of a person who just gave someone else the keys to their life. The man tapped the glass gently with it as a signal, then backed away. The lights of his car flashed once, And then it receded into the fog the way a storm recedes when you pretend to be its accomplice. I thought I was done. I thought the night would trade me back like a bad form of charity. But the thing that unstitched me was not the wallet. It was the text I got 5 minutes later when I tried to catch my breath. You're lucky. Not chosen. It's been months. I picked my car up from a mechanic and drove with a friend in the passenger seat for weeks afterwards. I tell myself the logic: it was a robbery. Criminals pick soft options. It was a man, not a monster. You were not targeted to disappear. You were not followed to talk. And maybe that's true. But I will never drive alone at night again for reasons that don't neatly fit into rational paragraphs. I will never again enjoy the hush of the road as a private thing. I know now it can be read. I will not trust the idea that headlights in my rearview are only other people getting home. And worst of all, I learned how small the margin is between being watched and being chosen. The night taught me that the road remembers you. It remembers your headlights, your favorite exit, the way you slow for the maple branch that dips at mile marker 12. Some hunter learns every pattern like a rope. Some people think following is a sport. Some nights your choices become a test someone else grades. So now, when I drive at night, I do it with company. I call someone to say I'm leaving. I take the lit route, the one with more witnesses than silence. I keep the locks on. I learned practical things, yes, mechanics of survival, but deeper than that, I learned that solitude at night is not a small luxury. It is a vulnerability. If you're the sort of person who likes the open road after dark, that sense of being alone with your thoughts, be careful. There are things that read the same quiet you do and keep notes. And sometimes they are not interested in your car, your money, or your late playlists. Sometimes they are only interested in proving they can follow you home. And I don't want them thinking about me anymore.